Every Hearthstone expansion, there is usually one card that stands above the rest as being the best card from that expansion. So obviously what we should do is go through each expansion and pick the best card from it. Now, I do want to mention this, that I'm picking the card based on solely what it is, not because it's in some ridiculous combo, but as one particular card in a vacuum, what is the strongest. Starting off with Hearthstone Classic, it's quite easy to look at a lot of these cards and say this one's the best and this one's the best, because there was actually a lot of well-designed cards that were extremely powerful back in the day. But in my opinion, one card stands above the rest, and that is Ice Block. The ability to stay alive guaranteed for one extra turn allowed a lot of decks to actually be in the metagame, like Freeze Mage to fight against aggro and have an extra turn to actually OTK them. It also allowed Mage to have a lot of different archetypes throughout the years until it eventually rotated to Wild for being too toxic of a card. Moving on to Naxxramus, which was the first adventure to Hearthstone. This was a really big deal as this is the first time we got new cards added into Hearthstone. So there was no bar of previous power creeping. This was all going to be brand new. And I think Naxxramus was a really good first adventure. There was a couple of toxic cards here and there, but I think one card stood above the rest as the best card from that expansion. And that card for me was Lothab, a 5-mana 5/5 neutral legendary minion. Battlecry enemy spells cost 5 more next turn. The benefit of Lothab was it was able to protect your board if you were playing a tempo deck. It was extremely good against combo oriented decks, basically giving you a free turn. And it was also just a really good turn 5 play if you had nothing else to do. Moving on to Goblins versus Gnomes, which was the first real expansion Hearthstone added to its game. We started to see the first real rise of power creep because, you know, obviously some of these cards were extremely good, but one card took a lot of people by surprise, which was Dr. Boom. Also known as Dr. 7, Dr. Boom was the best thing you could do on turn 7 and arguably changed the tide of a losing game no matter what. This card was just extremely powerful due to the raw amount of stats that you got, but also the amount of potential damage it could do with boom bots. Dr. Boom was an extremely good card. Blackrock Mountain was the next adventure that we received in Hearthstone, and there was a lot of good cards in this adventure. This was actually one of the best sets ever printed, and I was going to put Grim Patron as the best card from it, but due to the amount of cards you need to actually pull off the insane combo, I decided not to include it as the best card, and instead I'm going to put Emperor Thorson as the best card from Blackrock Mountain. This card can often be regarded as it has to be killed the turn it's played, otherwise you just strictly lose the game, and that's basically what it was. It set up a lot of combo, it led to some really interesting decks, and on top of it, it was used for a really long time before it rotated. I do not think that Emperor Thorson would be good enough to see play today, but let me know what you think in a comment down below. The next expansion we got was the Grand Tournament, and the Grand Tournament was definitely not a super powerful set due to its keyword being not that great. Now for me, I think that Justicar Trueheart was an extremely powerful card, but one card to me stood a little bit higher up in terms of power level. And if you played during this expansion, you know exactly what this is. It's Mysterious Challenger. Not only was Mysterious Challenger a decent body at the time, but it drew each of your secrets from your deck and put them into the battlefield all for 6 mana. This was just an extremely powerful tempo play, and when you followed this up with Dr. Boom, it was extremely hard to overcome it. Next we have the League of Explorers, which was the third adventure added into Hearthstone, and this was actually a really good set because there was a lot of powerful cards right from the get-go. It was the first time that we got to see the League of Explorers, but only one League of Explorers really stood out to me as the best one, and that was Reno Jackson. But I actually don't think that's the best card from this expansion. I'm going with Tunnel Trog. This card was just extremely tempo oriented and it could snowball out of control before Reno could even hit the battlefield. Both of these are actually really good answers though, and it's hard to pick which one I believe is actually the best one, so let me know what you think in a comment down below. Next we have Whispers of the Old Gods, and there was a lot of great cards in this set. It was the first time we were introduced to obviously the Old Gods, but there was also a lot of random minions that turned out to be fantastic. Now, as much as I want to put Yogg as the best card of the set, I don't think it was, with 2 Shaman cards really highlighting the power of this expansion with Flame Wreath Faceless, which was the original 4 mana 7/7, and Thing from Below as a 6 mana 5/5, which its mana reduced for every totem you summoned. Both of these cards basically enabled the tempo shaman that was dominant for so long, and without them it wouldn't have been nearly as powerful. Now I don't know which one's better because they were both extremely good. 4 mana 7/7 kind of died out after a little bit, but Thing from Below definitely stayed around for quite some time. Then we have One Night in Kharaz, which was the next adventure on the Hearthstone expansion list. There was a lot of extremely powerful cards in this set, like Maelstrom Portal and Spirit Claws, but I think one card stood above the rest, and that was Barnes. Barnes was used to basically cheat out a really powerful effect from your deck, such as Yasharaz, and basically just win the game from that position. It was the most extreme case of mana cheat. This card was also extremely powerful and wild until they finally nerfed it from 4 mana to 5. Mean Streets of Gadgetzan was our next expansion, and oh my god, there was some really good cards in this expansion. For me, it was a tie between two cards because I legitimately couldn't tell you what was the best card from this expansion, Patches obviously being one of them and the other one being Kazakus. Kazakus was extremely good because it was basically just like a free out every single time you drew him, no matter what deck you're going against, but Patches literally warped the format around him, so obviously this one has to go to Patches. The next expansion we got was Journey to Gorro, and this is the first time that we got to see quests added to the game, and some of these quests were extremely good. Open the Waygate and the Caverns Below were both extremely powerful at the time, with the Caverns Below basically warping the meta around it. I do also want to mention Sunkeeper Tarim, as this card was extremely dominant in Paladin decks since its release, but I do think that the Caverns Below was the best card from the Journey to Gorro. Now we have Knights of the Frozen Throne, and my god, there was so many good cards printed in this set. We had Blood Reaver Gul'dan, the Lich King, Malfurion the Pestilent, but I think the best card from the expansion was Prince Kaliseth. Prince Kaliseth was basically the premium version of, if you get this in your opening hand, you just straight up win the game, and that's what it felt like, especially with Rogue. Prince Kaliseth basically defined the meta as the most tempo card ever printed because the amount of stats you can get from this card was just insane, especially when played on turn 1 with the coin. I also think Spreading Plague was an extremely great card from this set that basically countered Prince Kaliseth, but there are too many good cards in the set, I honestly couldn't even pick one. So let me know what you think is the best card from this set. Cobalt Catacombs was the next set released, and this was an extremely powerful set. We had a lot of great cards to pick here, like Knights of the Frozen Throne, and this was the first time that we got legendary weapons. So picking a best card from the set was definitely a challenge, but I'm picking it as a tie between Carnivorous Cube and Skull of the Minari. Skull Minari was definitely one of the highlights of this expansion because when you played that on turn 5, kind of like Prince Kaliseth, it felt like the game was already over, and Carnivorous Cube just basically said, if you don't kill a minion, you're kind of screwed. Next we have the Witchwood, and I'm not even going to go through what this expansion was. This was Baku and Gen all the way, no questions asked. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, so the next one we had was the Boomsday, and kind of like the Witchwood, I think one card really stood out compared to the rest, which was Ziliax, and I think this was probably the best card from it. It was used forever after this expansion was released. You know, good card. Next, we had Rastakhans Rumble, and obviously this was the worst expansion that we've seen so far because the power level was so weak, but there was a couple good cards in this expansion. I was going to put Mass Hysteria as the best card from the set as it was ran in so many priest decks, but I think Vol'jin really catered to the best card of the set because of how powerful of an effect it was with a really low power level of the expansion. Next, we had Rise of Shadows, which introduced us to the mechanic of lackeys, which I was not a huge fan of, but because of lackeys, we were introduced to one of the best rogue minions of all time, Evil Miscreants, which was in basically every single rogue deck until it was released, even after it was nerfed. A honorable mention here would be Heist Baron Togwaggle, as it was extremely powerful when used correctly, but I think Miscreant is the best card here. Next, we had Savers of Uldum, which reintroduced us to the Highlander mechanic that we loved from League of Explorers, and I think the best card here by far has Zephyrus all over it. I think this card alone made classes try the Highlander package, and it turned out getting the perfect card most of the time was really good. Next, we had Descent of Dragons, which raised the power level even further with introducing us to Galakrond. Now, I was actually going to give the best card here to the Shaman Galakrond, but because it took a long time for it to get going and required a bunch of cards to really set it up, I think the best card here was Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. This card was known as Scam Queen because the amount of games it could just take away from your opponent. It turned out playing a 9 mana 8/8 with 2 other dragons in the same turn was extremely powerful. Next, we had Ashes of Outland, which was a really fun expansion because this is the first time that we got to see Demon Hunter. Now, Demon Hunter had a lot of really powerful cards, but I think one card overall stood above the rest, which was Skull of Gul'dan. This card used to be 5 mana, and even at 6 mana, it has been a terror and basically put into almost every single Demon Hunter deck because of how great of a card it really is. Next, we have Skullman Academy, and Skullman Academy, in my opinion, is the strongest expansion we have ever seen when it comes to Hearthstone. This expansion was just absolutely insane because some of the cards in this set were just so freaking powerful, like Jandis Barov at 5 mana. But I think the card that really set the tone for Skullman Academy was pre-nerfed Guardian Animals at 7 mana. This card warped the entire meta around it and basically made it so if you were not playing Guardian Animals Druid, you were at a disadvantage for a little bit there. It was nerfed really fast to 8 mana, and Skullman Academy was still ridiculous after. Darkmoon Faire was the next expansion after, and it did not seem very powerful because of the fact that Skullman Academy was just so freaking powerful. I was going to put Il'gynoth as the best card from the set, but I think because it required so many combo pieces, I'm going to have to put something else, which I'm actually going to put as Arbor Up. Even though Arbor Up came from the mini set, this card was so freaking strong for any druid deck that wanted to push more damage, summon a board, or do anything in between. This is a very good card. Next, we have Forged in the Barrens. Now, this set was actually surprisingly really strong, and there was some really good cards that were introduced in this set. My 3 picks, and this is a 3-way tie because this was extremely hard, is the 2 Watch Posts and Mankrik. The 2 Watch Posts were meta warping until they nerfed it, thank God, because if they did it, we would probably still have to be dealing with them today. And Mankrik was seen in almost every single tempo deck because of what it offered as a singular 3 mana card. Now we have what I regard as the second best expansion of all time, United in Stormwind. This expansion, just like Skullman Academy, really shook up the meta because, oh my god, the power level of this set was insane. And as I was looking through the cards, there are so many cards in here that I wish I could pick, but I think the best one by far is the Warlock Quest. I know I'm kind of breaking my rule here because the quest needs a lot of support for it to work, but this card basically broke the speed record of getting banned in Wild. That is a really powerful effect. It was also nerfed quite a bit. Then we go to Fractured in Alterac Valley, which I think was an extremely powerful set as well. Maybe a little bit underwhelming when it comes to United in Stormwind, but there is some really good cards in this set. I think the best card is Shadowcrafter Scabs just because of what it can do for the rogue class, and as an individual card it is extremely good. But I can't deny the fact that Wildpaw Knoll is one of the reasons why rogue is so powerful in Fractured and Alterac Valley, and I would expect a nerf to be happening very soon for this card. Those are my best cards from each expansion. This was actually really difficult because there were some sets that had some really good cards in it. Let me know what you think is the best card from each expansion down below, and I hope you ended up enjoying it. And if you did, I would really appreciate a like and a subscription. I'll see you guys in the next one. You look fantastic.